You look puzzled. You understand me. Allow me to start again. Good morning. Today, we're going to be talking about what trees need and want. So, who knows better? Us or them? Trees communicate all the time. But do we understand? Now, you understand. I'm talking about communication. Communication, the exchange of ideas and thoughts within two or more individuals. It can be done through writing, speech, gestures, symbols, or other written communication. It's continuous transmission of a message among two or more individuals, the sender and the receiver. In this case, we're talking nonverbal communication. Our trees don't speak to us, they don't talk, verbalize, right? We don't need verbalization to have comprehension. Mother and child can't verbalize, but the mother knows what the child wants. She hears the little sounds they make. She sees it fidgeting. I won't talk about the smells, but there she understands what the child needs. So we're talking about the full sensory communication form. So you need to engage your senses, right? So it comes down to the question, well, I need to see what's going on. I see the tree over here, big, looks kind of odd. You know, it kind of looks all awkward on one side. I see it's planted in grass. No, I was actually planted in rock. And I see it this big hot cement, asphalt cul-de-sac. And the tree's right here, planted in rock, makes all this hot heat coming off this pavement. Like I see, it's actually planted this narrow little bed here. Not a lot of roof space. I see there's a wall behind it. What's over the wall? Oh, oleanders. Neighbor's got trees, bushes on that side. They're sucking the water out underneath the wall. That's why it's dark as I see it's defoliated over here. I see a lot of different things. Now, there's no leaves on it. Feels kind of long. Flexible. I checked this one. Put these branches on, no leaves. It just feels stiff. You know what? I can hear it crackle when I bend it. I don't snap, I still hear it's about to crunch and snap, but push too hard. I hear that. Well, what if I go around behind it? Funky back here. Weird. The smell is weird. That smells sort of like a chemical. It smells like some oily, gassy residue or something. That's what's affecting the tree. Maybe down to there. You know what? Ooh, I smell chlorine. I'm using all these cues, these sensory things I see. And there's some fruit. Oh, it feels woody. Spongy. Tastes kind of woody. No flavor of that. How about this one? Oh, hey, fruit, small. Sour or sweet. So I'm tasting, I'm using all these senses to talk about how I'm learning, what I'm figuring out about these trees and what the tree's trying to tell me. Each tree is communicating a different message because each tree is a different individual that is communicating its individual responses to its environment. So we use all these senses to to put together our assessment and analysis of what's going on with our trees. The good news is today, a very special guest speaker, everyone's favorite trainer, teacher, and coach, the great Dennis Schwartzel. This is called surprise communication. I was just messing with you, Dennis. I love to make it call. I got it right here.
Short-lived. But we want to make sure that there's no weak issues in here that might cause a safety hazard. So one of the things you can do is sound the trunk to listen for decay. So if you hear differences in the sound, that sounds pretty solid there. This was on the aerial root. So this is what is known as a conch. It's a fruiting body from a fungus that's internal in the trunk. And when you see this, you know right off the bat there's probably decay in the trunk as a result of this being exposed on the exterior. So just that key alone tells you that we probably have internal decay in the tree. So how do you know? Well, you can look further up in the tree to see if there's any issues. And the first thing that I saw was this glob of wet stuff here. So if you see that, that's all wet. And if it's more advanced, a lot of times the wetness will have a very foul aroma. It smells like a frat party on a Sunday morning, you know. It smells like sour beer, stale beer. And this is usually a sign of internal wet wood. So when it's inside the tree, it's called wet wood. And then when it exudes on the perimeter of the trunk, then it's called slime flux. And this is probably a cocktail of bacterial material, kind of yeasty type stuff. That's why it smells like sour beer or stale beer. So anybody want to give it a shot? You can do that is to drill into the trunk, and if the wood is strong, it's going to have a lot of resistance against the bit. But when you hit the decay, it's going to jump in there really quick, and you'll feel that there's no resistance once you get into what might be referred to as punky wood. And then about halfway?
Yeah.
So there's our core. And because this is a soft-wooded tissue, the rings don't show up very well. So this is a diffuse porous instead of a ring porous tree. We also have Cytospora, which is all through here. Right there, there's a knot there. Any place where there's a swollen knot that's abnormal, that is a fungal disease known as Cytospora.
It's like bubbling. Yeah, it is.
Dennis, very good. So, a lot of times we end up taking this role almost like a doctor-patient, right? The patient is describing the history, here's what's going on. The arborist, doctor, reads the case profile. What's the story behind this? Patient shows symptoms. Doctor observes the symptoms. Demonstrate the ability to listen. The doctor's going to test. Check these things out in the assessment. Patients expressing their feelings and goals. What's it want? What's it trying to say it needs? What's the health and conditions? And that's what we're doing to assess these goals and just figure out what's the methodology, how to address the issue that is causing the patient problem, right? And the patient has to give a treatment plan. We have to describe and determine the treatment plan. So are we like doctors? No. We're actually a translator. Because if he didn't call me up and say, Joe, I feel like crap, come check me out. I didn't get a message, feed the computer, send me an email. Client, this is Smith. I Johnson, Tom, the board member, say, hey man, check out my tree. He sees the tree communicated to him, I'm looking like crap, I'm driving out here. So we come, and now we have to interpret for the translator, right? The tree's letting us see these symptoms. We're reading, we're using the sensory communication to understand what's happening. We get a different message than what the client sees. So we have to refer this and translate to the consumer, the customer, what's really going on. The client is saying, well, I have my tree trimmed, which means half wrapped or topped or butchered in some other way. And now it's got the sprouts coming off the trunk. It looks like crap. Clean those all off. Now we have to translate and say, no, the tree is telling me I need photosynthesis. I need to produce sprouts. I need to feed my roots. You can't see the bottom half of the body, it's underground. But I've got greenery up here to feed that underground system. If you cut all my green off, I gotta make some more out of whatever savings I got. So the client wants to cut those sprouts off, but I'm saying no. The tree's saying, I want to do it, that's why I produced them. So we have to think about the trees telling us, so we can understand what really needs to be done. So, one thing we want to do is make sure we set them free at birth, right? The birthday of a tree is the day it goes in the ground, right? Staking, time of installation, you want to remove the transport stake. Later. The outrigger stakes, okay, we can let that be tied to support it if it needs it. You know, a lot of times you gotta make a 48-inch box tree. That box weighs, I don't know, 1,500, 2,000 pounds. Think it's gonna blow over? I don't think so. Right? So staking is for the root to develop, to let the thing get established. Now people are trying to keep the tree straight. Right? Tie it up and bind it, you can't move. It's like you put your leg in a cast. Does it get stronger or weaker? It atrophies. Need tension, right? That's what all this workout stuff is all about, right? So staking is for a limited thing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that here. Common problems that people do, more out of negligence than they'll think about, is tree stakes. They put the tree stakes on the tree to help a new installation, but if they leave them on too long, it create other problems, and it just doesn't really look good. Kind of a messy, ugly kind of thing. Some of these aren't even doing any good at all. It's on there, but it's not attached to anything other than weighting down and just making this poor thing struggle. So we'll be taking this off. Okay, let's do that right now. Simple as this. Quick cut, pull that. That useless item goes away. So these over here, you can see this one barely wrapped on. It's not holding up the tree. If we look at this one down here, you see these ties. These wires are starting to cut into the outer bark of the tree. So this is going to cause a pinching, a girdling of the cambium, and make it difficult for this tree to survive. So it's going to cut this off, get that cleared out. Same thing over here. We'll go ahead and remove this. And there's even one up top. This was not doing any good either. All these can come off. You can see how much good this stake was doing. The tree was holding up the stake. This obviously is not doing anything either. It can simply be cracked loose. They usually tend to rot out at the bottom. As they've been in for so long, this rots away, and it's really not doing any good at all. This one here, that one's in a little tighter. So let me show you a technique for getting these out. Let's say it is in there really tight, and you're going to crack it. A lot of times you try to crack it loose, and it'll break off, and then you'll have a stub sticking up. So the way to get these out, you can't pull it out. The trick is to use good old channel locks. The channel lock, it'll twist. Once you put the rotation on it, twist out, then it pulls out without breaking off. So one of our other common problems that happens with a lot of homeowners, they put tree stakes on trees, or they're in when they get installed, but they never take them off. So years later, this tree is well established. It's not moving, right? But these tree stakes are just ugly, and they can actually do damage as these ties start to girdle. So we want to cut these off so we can stop it from girdling into the trunk. You can see the discoloration, and it's been indenting into the trunk. This is certainly not going to help the tree. We want to cut these off. This one's not even attached as well. Again, you can see how this just lifts out. So obviously this stake is not doing any good for the tree. This one over here, same thing. That's not holding up the tree is holding up the stake. Now here's one's in a little deeper, right into the root flare. Now I can't really pull this out. Okay, it's just in there too tight. So here's a technique for getting these out. When these are locked in, good pair of channel locks. Get a good bite on the snake. You want to twist until it loosens up. Then we can go slowly lift. Get that out. So that's a technique for getting that out. And cut the top wire, of course, couldn't even see that one. I call it freeing the trees. No more tree bondage. Choke it, right? This tree's saying, hey, I got a problem. You're early me. Those tree sticks out there too long. Well, half the tree's dead, right? Can't breathe. It can choke you, cause a build of a flow and kill the whole top. Maybe something below it can survive, but we create a weak spot in the tree, right? That might eventually heal, but guess what happens when that tree gets big? Those storms come, that weak point in that bark and that trunk tissue can protect them, right? Fall in your house. Good old lion tailing, right? Very common practice. Come in. I want to clean it down. They strip it out. Well, now the tree's saying, hey, man, I got nothing going here. Put all the weight on my hands. The wind whipping it around, right? It doesn't have enough food to feed itself. If you expose the bark to sunburn, that wasn't used to be in the shade, right? Now it's getting full sun, right? So they burn, they die. We can see if you try to put some sprouts out, try to rebuild the energy, but guess what? Those top branches are going to go. Right? Too much. Just do it too doggone much. I think so. A lot of times, that look good. At least I pruned the tree. My landscaper trimmed the tree for me. No, this is not exactly called pruning or trimming. Topic. The tree's going to say, yikes, I better put some sprouts out, and here it goes. It's going crazy. Like, please, I gotta produce some energy here. I need some photosynthesis, and it's going to put out more sprouts. Sometimes people say, kind of shorter. It'll grow back, it always does. So here we see this one. It tried to grow back. These sprouts grew, but they're just not big enough. They just couldn't draw enough moisture up. And in the summer, these other guys died. This one made it, but the others died. And so it doesn't really work doing that. So what can be done after Calvin? Allow it to regrow. Let it restructure. It's trying to do its job. Is it going to need to be cleaned out? Are there going to be clusters of too many branches all in one place? Absolutely. But they need to strip them all off again. Or let it go crazy for a year or 2 or 3. Rebuild that structure over time, right? You didn't get this big in 2 years anyway, right? 15, 20-year-old tree, well, you gotta give it a few more years to recoup its energy. Sometimes it's just saying, I can't breathe, right? The root collar can't be buried. It's a gas exchange, right? It's in transitions over the tree. Trunk is bark. Roots are roots. Roots absorb water. Bark holds water in. That transition where the tissue changes is where gas exchange happens. So here's a root collar. Doesn't look so bad, does it? But then, if we get up, we go around, we've excavated. Uh-oh. That's a lot deeper than we thought. There's a whole bunch more to go to clean this out. It's being covered up by dirt. But you can see this is where the root flare really occurs. This is putting out adventitious roots to try to compensate and get some air down into the area that had been smothered all the way up to here. So this was buried a good 5, almost 6 inches. Way too deep.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about an often overlooked element of getting a good tree established. This is a unique, beautiful little specimen. This is actually a chinkapin oak. Kind of uncommon. You don't see a lot of these. It's got these beautiful leaves. But this is an evergreen as an oak species. So it's a wonderful little specimen. Recently installed. We can see that they have staked it, but you notice they took out the center stake, so this trunk is allowed to move. That's an important part of establishing a tree, so it'll develop the trunk taper and the tissue strength to support the tree as it develops. So moving in the wind is a good thing, and getting that stake off the back prevents it from doing physical damage by rubbing against the trunk. The next important thing to check is the installation depth, where it was planted. The base of a tree, this is called a root crown. The root crown is an important part of the tree because this is bark. Bark is developed to keep the water inside the tree, whereas roots do the opposite. They take water in through the outside, and that's how the water comes inside and up through the tree. But this area at the base is called the root collar. This is a transition zone for the tree. It's also an area that the tree will use to do a gas exchange. So what we want to do is we want to check this level and see how was this done. Is this collar at the appropriate level? In other words, does the tree flare out where the roots begin? See how this is starting to go? I'm opening this up. Very often, people will install this and they think, oh, I'll tuck it in nice and deep. Well, you don't want it deep. I don't want water and moisture on the trunk, on the bark. I want this down in the root zone. So we want to open this up. This isn't bad at all. Sometimes you'll see them very, very deep, and that can cause serious problems with decay. This is not so bad, and this is at a more appropriate level. So this is more what we want to have, is a nice exposed root flare that's going to promote healthy growth, good development to the tree, and keep it growing in a sustainable manner. You also notice these irrigation points have been put outside and not in on the trunk. Again, this is bark tissue. It shouldn't be wet or we'll get disease. So here's another new installation example I'm going to talk about. So a couple things about the way this was done in particular, okay? We can see this was done with the tree transport stake left intact. This is going to keep the tree weak, and we're going to take this off and I'll show you what it can do as far as actual physical damage to the tree. The outrigger ties were not exactly done well. They're kind of flopping around. We'll try to see if we can tighten those up and get that to solve that problem. So let's actually deal with this tree stake first, because I want to be able to move this thing around, okay? These stakes are meant to be installed in the nursery to transport and keep the tree movable, so they can move the tree by grabbing onto the stick instead of moving on the trunk, which would cause root damage into the root ball, which we don't want. Now again, this is going to be in there kind of tight, so I can't get it. The trick here is our good old friend channel locks. These are designed to get this. We're going to go ahead and twist this until it gets loosened up. But because it's already inside of here, I got to twist it and take it up all the way the long way, instead of just being able to pull it out before I put those ties on there. But we're not going to remove those at this point. So you see I pull this out up through here, right? But here's the important part, okay? I want you to see the damage this has done. Rubbing against the tree, all this wounding, this is all going to interfere with the water flow up the trunk, the tissue. It's caused all these wounds, could be entry points for disease and pests. So now we have trees wounded, but now it's free to move. What I do see, now that it's moving, is back to the root flare we talked about. Okay, so here's another example. You see this guy is not really very happy. Had some unfortunate pruning cuts up top. That doesn't help. A lot of excess sun into the canopy. These guys need the protection in their canopy to keep going. Once again, we see the transport stake was left intact. So we're going to take this off first, because this is going to cause a lot of problems, as I said. So let's get this out of here and see what's going on. This one, again, we can see is really in there. So let's get this out. Let's see what we got. All right, here's another example. Quite a bit of damage early in here. Old wounds, they've been healing. We have all this damage coming up the trunk. I see these wounds causing pinch points, wear spots, and damage between this. So all this new foliage is supposed to create the structural branches now have all this damage to deal with. as much as we want to get rid of this, we have to leave these on until this can get enough health and strength to even support having those removed to develop the ultimate structure. Okay, so this had some challenge here. Let's check the root flare into the depth here. Let's move this out. You see, it doesn't look like it was that bad. It's a little deep. It would appear much of this tree's problems. See how we're getting the rot and decay? Even where that transport stake went down below ground surface, you see how this being exposed to water, it's creating like a fungally decay type situation where it's all wet and gummy. This is not good at all. It's no okay, so we've completed the root collar excavation. You see we got this thing down a good, what, 5, almost 6 inches of dirt, wet, gooey stuff covering this up before we got to this, which is the actual flare. So all this excess soil had to go. You can see the dark soil here. This is the original container mix from the nursery. This is where we need to be down to, not putting this extra layer of dirt on top. We're gonna place these air emitters out away from the trunk and then get some decorative rock back in here. Just gonna let this breathe, let it heal, dry out, and prevent disease, and cross our fingers and hope the best for this poor little guy. So even if we got the excess dirt out, you see this is the nursery soil, there was an inch of this stuff on top of here as well. So make sure you clean out from the container that's in the nursery. Remember, they add extra soil because they're washing things constantly. So make sure you get all the way down to the actual true root flare where the roots are coming out. That way you're going to ensure good oxygenation into the tree.
Okay, so one more, we want to use all these elements, how we take all this information, pulling together the factors, our observations, the clues we've been gathering, and we can see what the cause is and what we can determine based on all this information the trees communicated to us.
Okay, so here's an example. This is a big, beautiful old mesquite, but you can see all that dieback up on the top. Canopy's dying back on all sides, has a lot of challenges. So let's go take a little closer look and see what's really going on with this tree. So as we approach, you'll see, we get up underneath, we can see significant borer damage. So we had borer larvae. If we look at this one branch here, there's damage. You can see the galleries where borers had gone in, eaten the cambium, gotten into the tissue, and interrupted the flow of nutrients going up to the crown. It's causing this dieback. As a result of that dieback, if we come back here, you see this over here, we have water sprouts. And on the back side, you see one over there. These water sprouts are developing because the tree is trying to rebuild its energy to replace the lost canopy up above. So as that dead wood is removed, these water sprouts need to be left intact, not removed, but to help the tree rebuild its strength, as well as to create new branching to create a new crown after that. So let's take a little closer look at something else too. If we look here at the crown, look at the base here. That looks like a telephone pole coming straight out. I don't know because we haven't done an excavation yet, but I'm gonna guess that this crown was buried when they installed this beautiful planter bed. So nice idea to install flowers and pretty the place up, but if it came at the cost of burying the root crown, that stressed the tree. Once the tree is stressed, that's when the borers attack, get the dieback, and then we have to start over with a new cycle of water sprouts being initiated in order to help the tree regain the energy and strength to try to survive.
So understanding what's going on is how we know what to do, how to help these trees, right? So sometimes the trees just say, hey, a little help. I'm not gonna go and cut down, go to like nutritional things, but maybe they're saying, hey, I've been in the same ground for 20 years, 25 years. I kind of sucked all the nutrients out of here. Could you give me a little more? I need a little help here, a little more nutrient into that soil, for something that's getting old, I need something new. Fertilize, something. You know, maybe the pests, right? We see things that pests tell us things, right? We also see the clue, we feel the sticky honeydew on the leaves. We see the different clues, and these are pests attacking these trees. So I'll get no good at that. But stress from change, the damage in inadequate irrigation is going to lead to failure over time. And then, not to forget about our friends the palms. Palms have similar problems. They're doing this similar communication. It might take longer, slower, but when we look at these palms, we notice how the trunk was nice, but now it's tapered. That taper, that narrow penciling, tells me they can get this kind of pruning treatment for way too long. It's starving to death. It can't feed itself because it doesn't have enough fronds to do that. And the fronds are getting shorter and shorter. This guy's running out of energy. And yes, in fact, this tree is now gone because it pooped out and died. You can't cut all the fronds off and expect it to live. That's how it's feeding itself. So always remember, like my old slide about pruning, you need to prune properly, right? We need to teach people to get this education. Our best prevention is over pruning is prevention. We can prevent damage, educate people so they know, hey, more is not better, right? Correct is better, right? Correct on the even parallel, right? And clean it up from here, but make it look good